Hey guys, Welsknight here, and welcome to a little bit of a tutorial video. Today we are going to be taking a look at Extreme Reactors. I recently built an Extreme Reactor in my Project Ozone Light in my Hermit Skies series. There were a lot of comments saying, you did it wrong, you built you don't know what you're doing, you're supposed to build it this way. And that information was incorrect. And it kind of got me thinking, there's probably a lot of people who don't really know how this mod works and the actual mechanics of it. So we're going to take a little bit of a look at it today with some science. And we're going to kind of talk about how to build a reactor that is kind of the best bang for your buck, so to speak. So what this video is not going to be, I'm not going to show a block for block design of how you should build a specific reactor. I'm going to talk instead about the mechanics of Extreme Reactors, or Big Reactors. I may refer to it as Big Reactors. It used to be Big Reactors back in 1.7.10, and then it was ported after the mod author kind of left and somebody else kind of picked it up. So now it's called Extreme Reactors, but the mechanics are the same. Anyway, so basically what I am going to show is the mechanics of how this works, and I'm going to give examples. You can see I've prepared this big, huge thing. So let's kind of get into it. Also, I should mention, I'm in Project Ozone Light right now as the mod pack. So you're going to see numbers for like power generation. Those numbers are going to vary depending on the mod pack you're playing and depending on how Extreme Reactors is configured in the config files. So don't worry too much about the specific numbers that are being generated, the fuel consumption, and the actual power generation. Those, as I said, will change depending on what pack you're playing, but the mechanics are going to be the same. So the first thing you need to know about Big Reactors or Extreme Reactors is that coolant is important. First of all, there's the mod itself and how you make a reactor. It's pretty straightforward. You need a reactor base. You need a controller. You need at least one access port. I like to have two, and one of them set to outlet mode to output used fuel. And then you need at least one control rod and one fuel rod. And the fuel rod goes there like so. And then you do the whole thing, and once it's all done, it will form just like this. And that's how you know you did it right. If you right click on it, it will tell you what's wrong with it. So if you're having trouble, right click anywhere on the multi-block structure and it will tell you what you've done wrong. So anyway, you build a reactor, right? And then you want to cool the rod. You want to make sure that it's properly cooled. The only blocks that matter for coolant are the blocks in the cardinal directions of the fuel rods. The diagonals do not matter as far as what material you use, and you'll get better coolant and better efficiency in power generation depending on the material you use. I'm not going to go over every single material you can use because it's going to vary from pack to pack. Generally, the best coolant is going to be gelid cryothium. If it is in the mod pack that you're playing, it's from Thermal Foundation. And it's a little tricky to get. If you don't have gelid cryothium, or if you're maybe building your first reactor, a good option is resonant ender or liquefied ender. Liquefied ender pearls. They're the same thing. That's also a very good option as well. You can use tons of other stuff, though. You can use air, you can use water, you can use iron blocks, whatever, and you'll get different numbers depending on what you use. But the only blocks that actually matter when it comes to the coolants are the ones in the cardinal directions of the rod. The diagonals don't matter. So to demonstrate that, we're going to activate both of these reactors. They're identical, except for this one has resonant ender everywhere, and this one has resonant ender only in the cardinal directions. And if we look at these, 7.74, 1.66, 7.73, it's the same. You can see it's basically the same thing, right? The numbers are identical, okay? So, essentially, when you're building a reactor, you are balancing a couple things. You're balancing your space constraints, and depending on the mod pack you're playing, You may have those. You know, if you're playing a skyblock, you really don't have to worry about space so much, although you may have to worry about the materials you're getting, the resources you need. You're balancing power generation, and you're balancing fuel efficiency, okay? So the higher you build your reactor and the more fuel rods are in your reactor, the more power it's going to generate. The wider you build your reactor, the more efficient it's going to be. So if you're looking for something that's super efficient and uses very little fuel, you want to build it wide. If you want to generate lots and lots of power, you want to build it tall. The taller you build it, the less fuel efficient it's going to be. So bear that in mind. And to demonstrate, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reactors here that are all identical, except for how wide they are. They all just have one rod in them, and it's basically a one tall rod, okay? And if we look at all these, this one's generating 3.82, 6.28 from having coolant, 7.13, 7.33, and so on and so forth. And you can look at the fuel consumption here, 1.53, 1.54. As you go bigger, you're going to get more power and more. Now, these have been running for a while, so it's a little bit skewed because, yeah, there we go. We're kicking out these cyanide ingots, and that's when it's going to be the most power and the most fuel consumption. But basically, the wider you go and the more actual blocks of coolant there are between the power rod and the wall of the reactor, the more efficient it's going to be. So now we get to kind of the important part, and this is the part that really confuses people. And that is, how should you place your rods most efficiently? And a lot of people say, hey, you should do like a checkerboard pattern like this. Do 5 rods and put them in a checkerboard pattern. The problem with that is that you are limiting the amount of potential coolant, right? And the other thing, too, is that when rods are placed next to each other, directly next to each other, they essentially irradiate each other and make them generate more power. So if we compare this reactor, this thing is generating 42.9 thousand RF per tick and is using roughly 2.39 or 0.239 millibuckets of fuel, okay? If we look at this one, it's 4.43 and 0.2. So compare those. This one over here generates a little bit more power, and it's more fuel efficient, considerably more fuel efficient, actually. 0.20 versus 0.23, 0.24 almost. Same amount of rods, but this one's in like a plus, and this one's in the checkerboard pattern that everyone seems to want to use. So this is actually a better design than this one. And that's because these rods are touching and they're able to irradiate each other and basically give themselves like a little bit of a bonus, right? So to further demonstrate that, here we have 9 rods. These 9 rods are all in a checkerboard pattern. Here we have 9 rods, and these 9 rods are all just right next to each other with as many of them touching as we possibly can have, okay? 8.3, 0.33. 79.7, 0.39. So remember, more power, more fuel efficiency, less power, less fuel efficiency. Checkerboard, touching. You actually want to have them touching, and the important thing is how much coolant you have on the outside. Now, I haven't done a lot of testing to see what would happen if we were to have like another set of fuel rods like this. That may lower it significantly, but if you're talking 9 rods or less, which is going to be most reactors, this is the way to go. The design that I personally use is this one. This is the one that I built in Hermit Skies. It's basically 8 rods in a box like so, and with one coolant thing right in the middle there, and this guy generates 71 power and uses a little bit less than 0.3, which is a little bit activate this guy. I must have, oh yeah, because when I put the block down, it turned it off. There we go. So it's a little bit less power than this and a little bit more fuel efficient. Obviously, the more rods you have, the more fuel you're going to use. But the big takeaway that I want to give is that the checkerboard pattern is not your best bet. Everyone seems to think it is, and to be honest, there's not really any right or wrong way to do big reactors. I mean, it's kind of one of those mods where as long as you have a functional reactor, you're probably going to be okay. But if you're looking to make like the most efficient design you possibly can to balance your power generation and your fuel consumption, you actually want to build something like this or something like this, not something like this. And you can make it as big as you want or, and tall as you want or whatever. There's a lot of options out there for you. It may be better in some cases to build, 2 smaller reactors than one really big reactor. It all depends. The one that I have in Hermit Skies is a little bit taller than this. I think it's 2 blocks taller than this one. And in that pack, it generates about 231 RF or 231,000 RF per tip. But as I said, Project Ozone Light, the amounts have been greatly increased in the config files from what the defaults are. So there you go. That is kind of the quick and dirty tutorial on big reactors. Just kind of wanted to set the record straight about the checkerboard versus the non-checkerboard. Guys, if you enjoyed the video and found it helpful, you know what to do. Links in the description below, so check those out as well. Otherwise, my friends, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.